I never thought the echoes of my family's ridicule would haunt me like the specters I studied. The day I was fired from my job as a city records clerk was the moment my life shifted from mundane to macabre. I had stumbled upon a pattern, a sickening trail of tampered death certificates linked to disappearances that twisted my guts with their implication. When I reported it, the response was a wave of laughter and denial, a dismissal that resonated with the clamor of my family's voices. "You're insane," they said, their eyes glinting with scorn. "You'll disgrace us. You're just looking for monsters under the bed." But those monsters were real, lurking beneath the surface of our city, beneath the polished facade of the buildings and the well-trodden streets. My obsession with urban spectral archaeology, my mapping of cursed territories and haunted architecture, became my sanctuary, a realm where the boundaries of disbelief crumbled. I spent years alone, consumed by my research, the whispers of the unseen guiding my hands as I traced the paths of the lost and the damned. It was a descent into madness, perhaps, but it was also a journey toward revelation. I cataloged the underground tunnels that ran beneath City Hall, suffocating with the secrets they held. Every brick seemed laced with a story waiting to be unearthed, every shadow a remnant of those who had vanished. And in my fervor, I transformed. I became a reluctant expert, an authority on the spectral intricacies of urban lore, exposing truths others dared not confront. Years passed. The world, at first dismissive, began to tremble at the weight of my findings. My name became known, synonymous with the horrors that lay beneath the city's surface. I was no longer seen as a madman, but as a warning, a guide for those who dared to tread too close to the void. And yet, despite my triumphs, there was a part of me that longed for acceptance, for my family to grasp the gravity of my work. The need to confront them twisted in my gut as I prepared to return home, a place that had once felt like a prison of mockery, but now beckoned like an unholy pulpit. When I arrived, the house stood unchanged, an unyielding structure wrapped in the familiarity of my childhood. My family was gathered for dinner, a scene of normalcy painted in pastel tones. The moment they laid eyes on me, however, the atmosphere thickened. "Look who decided to join us," my brother said, his voice dripping with feigned enthusiasm. I could see it in their eyes, the disbelief, the discomfort. The specter returning from the grave, a shadow they hadn't expected to haunt them. "Let's hear about your adventures," my mother chimed, a thin layer of sarcasm lacing her words. My heart raced. I was not just here to recount my findings. I was here to make them believe. As dinner progressed, I spoke of my research, of the truths I had unearthed that eluded conventional wisdom. I painted a vivid picture of the cursed locations I had explored, of the spectral echoes that lingered in the air. Yet they remained unyielding. Laughter erupted at the ghost stories I recounted, a dismissive chuckle that cut me deeper than any blade. I realized then that my words were mere incantations to the unwilling audience before me. But I had one last card to play. I excused myself and descended into the basement, a realm I had transformed into a makeshift laboratory of horrors. There, I had preserved relics of the strange, a shattered mirror that reflected not just images but whispers of the past, a collection of objects steeped in the despair of their previous owners. I grabbed a dusty journal filled with my findings and brought it to the table, my pulse quickening. "Open it," I urged, my voice low and trembling with the weight of unspoken truths. Their eyes gleamed with amusement, but I pressed on. "You have to see what I found." They exchanged glances, their laughter fading as a palpable tension hung in the air. Reluctantly, my sister opened the journal, and as she read the accounts of lost souls, of the dark purpose behind the city's history, The room fell silent. "Stop it," my father said, but his voice trembled, betraying the fear lurking beneath his bravado. "Dad, I need you to understand." Before I could finish, the lights flickered, plunging us into a darkness that felt tangible, suffocating. I could sense it then, the weight of the unseen pressing against the walls, crawling up our spines. The air thickened, and I could hear the whispers, the very echoes of those we had lost. Then it happened. From the shadows came a figure, a collection of twisted shapes and sorrowful eyes, writhing towards us. It was not just a specter. It was a manifestation of the very disbelief that had haunted me, the consequence of their ridicule now embodied and unleashed. My family recoiled, their faces draining of color as the apparition loomed closer, a grotesque reminder of the truths they had dismissed. They were trapped now, ensnared in the web of their own disbelief, confronted by the very horrors I had fought to reveal. "Believe me now," I whispered, tears stinging my eyes, not for their fear, but for the realization that they had brought this upon themselves. They had mocked the very knowledge that could have liberated them. The figure drew nearer, its form coalescing into a cacophony of anguished faces, the ones I had spent years understanding, the ones who had cried for recognition. My family's laughter echoed back at them, warped and twisted in the darkness. In that moment, I felt a surge of bittersweet triumph. I had survived the depths of despair, faced monsters that had clawed at my sanity, and now I stood as a conduit between the living and the lost. I was the expert they had feared, the warning they had ignored. As the apparition faded with a final wail, the room returned to light, revealing my family trembling in their seats, the laughter shattered like glass. Their eyes reflected the haunting realization of the cost of their disbelief, the fear of what they had mocked now haunting them. I left the house that night, feeling the weight of their eyes on my back, a reminder of my journey. I was no longer a disgrace, but a vessel of truth. The shadows had whispered their secrets to me, and now I understood. The monsters beneath the surface weren't just the horrors of the unseen, but the denial that had once threatened to consume us all. And as I stepped into the night, I carried with me the satisfaction of vindication, knowing that I had faced what they never could. The knowledge was mine, and the horrors I had unearthed were now my burden and my triumph.